Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the FPL Addicts and Esports Live Fancy Weekly Videocast and Podcast. On the agenda this week, we've got delight at Craven Cottage as Fulham finally pick up their first win of the season. The Saints nearly sinners after a late Villa flurry. The Welsh wing wizard, who finally announces his return back to North London. And the FPL Addicts King, who has temporarily at least lost his crown. Welcome to all, and we're going to bring in that former FPL King himself. It's Elliot Craig. How are you, mate?
I'm doing well, thank you, mate. King's quite a nice title to have, so I'm very grateful for that. You've niced me there, so thank you.
I mean, you've lost the title for the minute, haven't you? You're more of a prince now after your absolutely shocking week. You've been sent down to the dungeon of FPL after your shocking week, but more on that later. To start with, though, we will bring in the FPL football results for the week. Daniel Podence and Ike Nuri started Wolves off for a great start of the game with their 2-0 win over Crystal Palace at Molineux. Was a good win for them. To Bramall Lane on Saturday for the early kickoff, Kyle Walker returned to haunt his former club with an absolute fizzer to send Manchester City home with the 3 points. 3 o'clock kickoff, we had Burnley losing 3-0 at home to Chelsea. Zuma, Ziyech and Werner getting on the score sheet for the Stamford Bridge side. Liverpool played host to West Ham and just edged that one slightly. Pablo Fornals keeping on his good form for the Hammers before Salah and the man in form, Diogo Jota, scoring there for Liverpool. Aston Villa and Southampton to kick off Sunday. What a game this was. Southampton raced to a 4-0 lead after an absolute set-piece masterclass from James Ward-Prowse. The goals from Grealish, Mings and Watkins nearly pegged them back completely. A few scares in the Southampton camp, but they left Birmingham with all 3 points. Newcastle and Everton. Now this will obviously put a smile on your face, Elliot. A double from Callum Wilson continuing his great early season form. And a late consolation from Dominic Calvert-Lewin, not enough to get any points for Everton. They've stumbled a little bit now with back-to-back losses in the Premier League. The big game of the weekend that was mooted was Manchester United and Arsenal, 2 massive clubs. And Aubameyang with the goal for Arsenal after Hector Bellerin assist send the Gunners away from Manchester with all 3 points. And Tottenham Brighton, Tariq Lamptey, the FPL favourite, already getting himself a goal. It was a contentious one after a potential foul on Pierre-Emerick Højbjerg in the build-up, but Kane and Gareth Bale with his first goal after returning back to the white of North London with a goal there, and Spurs took all 3 points. Fulham and West Brom. Fulham finally getting themselves a win. Bobby Reed and Ola Aina getting on the score sheet for the Cottagers, and the Baggies left London disappointed. And to round out the week, what a win for Leicester. Yuri Tielemans at the double after an early goal from Harvey Barnes, and Jamie Vardy also scoring, and Stuart Dallas with a brilliant ball whipped in, foxed everyone, and got the only goal for Leeds. That was the football results. So, Elliot, over to your 3 shocks of the weekend. What did you take out of it?
Thank you very much, Ollie. Game week 7 has flashed by, and along with it brought some colossal FPL scores. My first main shock of the week goes to Southampton midfielder James Ward-Prowse. On his birthday, he managed to net 2 goals and earn himself an assist, all from set pieces, which accompanied by 3 bonus points and added with his playing time equal to a 17-point score for the midfielder. With only 5% ownership, he could be one to look out for. My second main FPL shock of the week was Jack Grealish. It was quite shocking after being 4-0 down. Grealish led his side back to get 3 goals with 2 assists and a goal for himself. He ended the week on 15 points, which is not bad considering the score at half time. My third and final shock of the week was big Kurt Zuma. The Frenchman netted his 3rd goal of the campaign and earned himself a 2nd consecutive clean sheet, which totaled his game week 7-point tally to 14 points. Some big scores this week from 2 players especially who aren't the most common players in FPL, but that was my 3 FPL shocks of the week.
Top class, perfectly done. And now we'll move on to the more FPL side. To introduce the other 2 guests, we have got the man himself, the guru, who's taken a bit of a slip in the league of late. But of course, he's a perennial guru himself. It's Matt from FPL Addicts. How are you, mate?
Yeah, not bad, thanks, Ollie. Look, I've slipped a little bit in a few of my mini leagues, so not too happy. But I'm hoping, some of the changes I'm going to make this weekend, which includes my wild card, finally, will get me back up those leagues.
That'll be something to watch out for. Big changes to your team, and a man who's made already some massive changes to his team to start his season It's the man himself. It's Jack Gillibrand from Esports Live. Jack, how are you feeling?
How am I feeling? I don't know how I'm feeling. I can't put into words, unfortunately, boys. If everyone's listening at home, on the podcast or watching, my face is full of disappointment and sadness for the week that I've had. Just as I thought I was finding a bit of form, it all went downhill. So, but more on that later, I guess.
And I guess that was compounded. We're recording this on Thursday night, so a little bit later than usual. This morning, your Manchester United, an absolute shocker.
I don't even want to discuss it. It's absolute Poch in? Question mark?
I mean, we'll have to see. That's wishful thinking, of course, but a 2-1 loss to Istanbul Başakşehir, absolutely inexcusable. What also was a bit inexcusable was Elliot in our mini league. He actually started this game week on top, but he has slipped a lot in terms of this week's results. As we bring up the mini league table, we have a new leader, someone I know quite well from my time back home, Tom Stones. Desmond Tutu currently leads the league as we bring that up. I'm currently in 11th spot, which isn't too bad, just outside the top 10, but there you go. There is the league table. We've got Tom Stones on top by 7 points, clear of Werner She Wrote. And if we scroll down, we see Elliot there, who's dipped a few spots. He's currently in 7th. He's fair way off the lead now, actually. 19 points off the lead.
7th, but if you look at it, I'm basically 3rd because I'm only 3 points off 3rd. If you look at it, it's very, very close. Pretty much top 3. Pretty much top 3 when you
That's
think about it.
not how it works, mate. I'm sorry. That's not how it works at all. I'm only 8 points back from Elliot now, which if you'd have said that to me at the end of last week's podcast, I'd have taken that 100%. And we scroll down for Matt, who finds himself out of the top 20 somehow. 24th, he finds himself in 41 points off the pace up top. But otherwise, a fairly decent week. Congratulations for Tom for absolutely unseating the former king we had. It looked like he was going to be ruling all season, but he's been knocked off his perch. And Blackburn fan Tom Stones, we were going to try and get him on the podcast, but he didn't respond to my message. So I think that'll be one for future weeks. We might be able to get him on so he can explain his FPL expertise. In terms of the top 20, only one chip was played. It was a free hit played by the person 18th. Declan had his free hit played. He has now played 2 chips. He's played his wild card in game week 2 and now his free hit in game week 7. But otherwise, no other chips were played. So a little bit boring on that front, let's say. But let's go over to our teams individually now. Elliot, we'll start with you. It's your worst week of the season by far.
Yeah, look, mate, I had an absolute shocker this week. I've just got to take the 38 points that we got, which was, not acceptable. 15 below the average is quite shocking. You look at my team, only Salah. I'm glad I've picked Salah as my captain because that were the most points I could have got. And then Kane were the only 2 that really did anything of note for me. James obviously didn't play. I was hoping Mitchell would come in for him, but he didn't play either. I think Van Aanholt's back up now, isn't he, and running. So, just a lot of 2s, 1s and 3s around. I think it was similar stories for a lot of people this week, but obviously not you. But we'll take the 38 points. We'll make some changes this week. I'm still not sure what changes, but we'll move on to next week, definitely.
I mean, you're going to have to. You want to get this one out of your memory because an absolute shocker, well below the average. Obviously, I can't say the same about myself not being below the average again, but we'll move on to me later. We'll move on to Matt, though, in the more immediate future. How did you get on?
It was another disappointing week. I felt that I was let down by a few players this week, especially Sterling, who he had a pretty good game for Man City, but he just couldn't quite get a goal. St. Maximin was another one. He got a 1-on-1 and he missed. 3 goals from Aston Villa, and Barkley wasn't involved in one of them. So, and then the Doherty clean sheet kind of went down the pan with the dodgy decision. And I started so well with Semedo, so it wasn't the best week, but I still feel like I gained some ground because I got more points than Elliot. So when he was top, and I knew I had more points, I thought that's more points towards the top at knowing that I'd had more. But that my biggest mistake was not taking out Trent for Zuma, which was funny because he was one of my guru picks last week, and I didn't even listen to my own advice and thought,
didn't back yourself.
Didn't back myself, and all 3 players. So I picked Che Adams, Lookman, and Alexander-Arnold, and all 3 of them either got goals or an assist. And Zuma, that would have given me an extra 12 extra points than what I've got now, and I'd probably be looking quite good. But at the same time, I think if I'd done that move, I probably wouldn't have decided to use a wild card, and I think it's time for me to use that wild card now. So too many players underperforming, and hopefully this week is going to be a much bigger score than this.
You'd like to hope so. He's just under the average. I mean, Jack, the limeline's been taken off you a little bit because of Elliot's absolutely disaster class. But, you had an okay week based off your standards.
An okay week. I think it's similar to Matt, though. Like, a lot of the players have underperformed, and that's what's really obviously killed me this week. But obviously, I made some changes last week. I made them early in the game week. Took out Grealish, brought in Zaha, who has been chasing for a while. Took out Mitchell to make that way, and brought in some Leeds player. And then at the last minute, Castagna obviously took that injury on the Friday. So I thought, should I take this 4-point hit? And I took the 4-point hit and brought Saiz in, and then he didn't even play. There was no reason for him not to be playing. So after being, he's a top ranked defender in FPL. Brought him in, and obviously he didn't even play, so he got 0 points. So I took the 4-point hit. The rest of the squad didn't really perform apart from Kane and Salah. I chose Martinez instead of McCarthy again, and I should have switched it, obviously, after that result. What a game that was, by the way. 4-3 to Southampton. And yeah, obviously it just didn't perform and stuck at 11 under the average. And I think now I've got into the hundreds, back in triple digits again, which I've stayed out of for the last couple of weeks after playing my wildcard. So bit of thinking and back to the drawing board and see. I think I'll just have to have a week off this week and let it play out and see how we go and not panic. And just trust in the team that I've got. I think United are playing against Everton, so not too sure what's going to happen there with Penaldes and Calvert-Lewin if he can snatch one. And Jorginho looks like he's off penalties as well, boys. So that's that investment, I think, gone. So yeah, we'll have to see. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I mean, based off Man United defending this morning, Dominic Calvert-Lewin should be aiming for about 7.
I think even the defenders will be able to run the whole pitch, won't they? There won't be any defenders there.
So
I do think you've got quite a good side though, Jack. Sorry, yeah, going forward, like you've got Zaha's got a good fixture this week.
Yeah.
Kane's got a good fixture. Son's got a good fixture. I think Calvert-Lewin is playing against quite a dodgy Man United defence, and then and Everton's fixtures are actually looking quite good down the track. So
yeah,
and I was speaking about this earlier with Man United. I think they've gone 2 league games without a goal, and you wouldn't think they'd go 3 on the spin without a goal. Surely not. So
surely not. I think even like Rashford, you expect to be stepping up, and Martial coming back. Yeah. You're hoping something there. Even Cavani might make an appearance just for the team to do something. I'm happy if I don't do well in FPL as long as Man United win, but we'll have to see.
When neither happen, it's not the best, is it?
Yeah, right. It's not good, boys. It's not good. But at least
I think you need to celebrate more than anyone.
Yeah.
That is true. That is true, Elliot. You should be shocked after that week that you've had. Over to me, and now I can stake the claim that I'm still not gone below the average. I can't say that I've been above the average every week because I was actually bang on this week, 53 points. Obviously, it was quite a high average this week, so it was quite a high points total to be achieving for. But obviously, a lot of people contributed and did well, and I just about hit that as well. I started off really well with Kilman, who I brought in 4.2 at the time, and he absolutely smashed it with a clean sheet. Danny Ings is a frustrating one. I know he got a brilliant goal. It was really well taken, but he'll be out for a little while, so I'm going to have to get him out of my plans. But few people contributing. Calvert-Lewin, obviously, with a goal. Kane got me 12 points as my captain. Salah had a goal, but a few blanks, obviously. Son, Fernandes, blanks as well. So very up and down week. I was watching the Southampton game, and they had the clean sheet up to the 60th minute, and I thought that they were going to hold it. Villa didn't look threatening, and obviously they lost that one. McCarthy was brilliant.
Crazy.
McCarthy was brilliant, though, in net, though, for Southampton in between the sticks. So I'm happy with this week. Happy with this week in terms of everyone else, close to the top, and just bang on the average. So I'll take that.
Okay. Perfect.
Team name Sabani, who's chosen.
All right, intro it.
So now moving on to our manager of the week. The squad will be on screen. It is sponsored by Esports Live, this segment. So the winner of this week's manager of the week will receive a $10 credit for any Esports Live tournament on PS4 or Xbox, which you can play for prizes and also some cash as well. This week, that will be going to Jovan Sadzakov, who is the manager of Sabani. He's 21st on the ladder and had a score of 79 points. If we just run through his team quickly, he had Dominic Calvert-Lewin as his captain. He got a goal, but also a big helping hand from Jack Grealish with 15 points. Also, Tariq Lamptey helped him out with a goal at the back, and Cancelo with 8 points as well was nice. And also Jan Vestergaard as well with some decent points. So his defence really on all fronts there. So that's a really good score from him. And he might be one to watch. He's just outside the top 20. He's 21st in the FPL Addicts and Esports Live League, but he may be one to watch going forward. So now, Matt, on to your pride and joy of this FPL podcast. It's the Guru section. Fire away, mate.
Thanks, Ollie. Look, we're going to start again with some polls that we've done recently on our social media page, FPL_addicts on Instagram and Twitter. We had some questions, some Game Week 8 questions that have come in from our followers. The first question coming from Mohammed Kurd. His question was, Werner, Mane, Zaha, Bale, Cavani or Maupay, who is the best Game Week 8 captain? Look, he's asked, there's a few different choices there. If I'm going to pick for Game Week 8 between those guys, it's going to have to be, I think Zaha would be my number one. Home to Leeds. He's had a few good scores this season, Zaha. So, Leeds are quite an open side. So I'd probably say Zaha. And also Werner with his penalty double last night in the Champions League. Mane, quite a tough fixture. Hasn't had too many kind of big scores. Bale did get his first goal last weekend, and Spurs nice fixture at West Brom, but no guarantee of a start. Cavani, I think that we've spoke about Man United, and Jack would vouch for me with that one. That's definitely a no-go. And Maupay didn't even get in the squad for Brighton last week. So for me, Werner and Zaha, and I'd probably be saying Zaha as number one and Werner number two. Our next question come in from James Gasden, who's very well known on the pod. He's also in our draft league. He come in with a question, and Mohammed, we had another Mohammed Fawwazi in, also asked the same question. The best replacement for Danny Ings at a similar cost. This was quite a favourite question. It was quite a hot topic this week with Danny Ings having a 6-week potential layoff. In terms of best replacement at a similar cost, I'm probably going to say it's got to be Calvert-Lewin. If you've not got Dominic Calvert-Lewin in, and you've got Danny Ings sitting there with an injury, I think he's the informed man. He scored in the majority of games this season, including on the weekend against Newcastle. I think another one, similar price, he is cheaper. I've gone Callum Wilson. Elliot would like me saying that one, but he's got another double. Seems to be scoring a lot of penalties as well, and just getting points quite regularly. So I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Wilson are the best replacements with a similar cost. If you've got a bit of money left over, I'd probably be looking at someone like Timo Werner if you've got a bit more in the bank. Again, we just mentioned his 2 goals in the Champions League. And I think you would need a bit more money. But if you do go with Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Callum Wilson, you do have a little bit more money left in reserve to use elsewhere. And our last question came in from the Instagram name was Akiaka Bar. And he has asked, is Trent Alexander-Arnold worth keeping? Well, that's my own personal team. I've actually decided to take him out, probably a week late. I'd say at this stage, there's no evidence to show that we should really be keeping Trent right now. There's no clean sheets for Liverpool. He's not been scoring the free kicks or getting the assists. Look, he's done well in the Champions League, but I think you can get Zumas and Chilwells for a couple of million cheaper. But I do think Trent will come back into our teams at some stage this season. But short to medium term, probably your next sort of 6 or 7 games, I'd be saying dispose of Trent and swap him for someone else.
Matt, have you got any players that you think might fire this week? Any form players that might produce some points?
Yeah, look, I've gone with my my form players. In terms of current form, I think this guy speaks for himself. I know a few of you have got him in your teams or potentially in your draft teams with Jack Grealish. He had a huge weekend haul, 15 points. I think that took everyone by surprise. He was sort of sitting there on the standard 2 points for most of the game, and then he kind of pops up, winning the penalty, scoring the late goal, and ending up in pretty good position. Other form players, Zuma, I mentioned him a few times in the last couple of weeks. He got a goal and a clean sheet. Still kicking myself that I never made that transfer. Another one, Callum Wilson, got a double. He's an absolute brilliant player in fantasy at the moment. I think he's actually gone above Dominic Calvert-Lewin in terms of points, total points. So Callum Wilson with a double. And my other form player, he was in my draft. I've got 2 draft teams. I think he was in one of my draft teams, and I think he was on my bench as well. But lucky I won one of my draft games. Was Vestergaard from Southampton. He's now got 5 returns in a row now, including a couple of goals, and I think Saints have been keeping a few clean sheets. So he rounds off my my current form players from the recent game weeks.
Now, following on from that, have you got any on your watch list? So this is composed of different differentials and ones to watch.
Yeah, look, I've got a few. I'm gonna be looking at West Ham this week. That they've been on some really good form against a lot of the big guns. They were unlucky to lose at Liverpool. A late goal cost them. They drew at my side, Tottenham. Got the draw at home to City. So, look, West Ham fans do say that it's they're game raisers, and it's these smaller games they slip up in. But Fulham at home, they have just come off a win, so it does worry me a little bit. But I'm going to look at West Ham, and I'm going to look at Cresswell, 7.5% ownership. He's on free kicks as well. I believe Statman Dave's actually got him in his side. So look, I think Cresswell's a great option. Jared Bowen, 2.2% ownership. Another one. Look, I don't normally like to pick Arsenal players, being a Spurs fan, but I've got to go with Bellerin, 5.9% ownership. He's returning points. Arsenal have actually conceded the least goals in the league, would you believe, as well? So there is a potential for clean sheet. He's just come off a nice 12-point score. Aston Villa at home. Another one I've put in, 4.8% ownership. Diogo Jota from Liverpool. He's got his hat-trick in the Champions League. I think him in mind is more so for future weeks. If you can get him in now, I know he's just price rise to 6.4. Playing on the counter-attack at City, potentially, there could be a goal. He's probably one more for future weeks, because he's such low ownership. He's definitely a differential if you don't have Salah. And then the last couple, I've gone Ziyech from Chelsea, 5.2% ownership, 14 points in his previous game. Home game against Sheffield United. I do think that's quite a tough game. Like, Sheffield United don't actually tend to get turned over too much. They really only lose games by 2 goals at the most, or 2-1. But he's probably the man to watch. Low ownership. I've also put Tammy Abraham in again, 2.1% ownership. He got an assist v Burnley last week, and he also got a goal in the Champions League, and they did bring him off at the hour mark. So it does sort of second guessing to think, is he going to get another start on the weekend, and Werner out on the left, feeding Abraham. So I'm liking the look of Abraham. So if you're looking for a nice differential up front, you've got Abraham. Rounding it off in midfield with Ziyech from Chelsea and Jota from Liverpool. Also Bowen from West Ham, and then your defenders with Cresswell and Bellerin. Yeah, look, Ollie, I think I'm going to have to go with my own team again. I've picked us a lot lately, but Kane and Son have performed most weeks. They're the the top point scorers. So I'm going to have to go with Spurs away at West Brom. West Brom yet to win a game. I like to think that we'd be able to win that game quite comfortably by at least a couple of goals. So definitely Tottenham away to West Brom. Next one, I've gone West Ham at home to Fulham. We spoke about West Ham's good form against the bigger sides. It does worry me about Fulham being a bit of a banana skin, but I think in terms of, and it is a London derby, but I think in terms of the actual fixture, anyone against Fulham at the moment is what they're kind of saying, which is a bit disrespectful in a way that Fulham aren't actually in the bottom three, but I think that is probably the next kind of standout fixture. Some good players to look out for from West Ham this week with Bowen and Fornals that we've previously mentioned. My last one, this was a tough one. I was looking at initially Southampton at home to Newcastle. Obviously, Newcastle did have a good win on the weekend, but Southampton have had quite a few clean sheets and they've had some really, really good form. They're flying. And the Ings news come in last night and I changed my mind. Chelsea won 3-0 and in the Champions League. So I went Chelsea at home to Sheffield United. But this one I'm going to say is mainly for potential clean sheets. Sheffield United, a low scoring team. Chelsea have been keeping, I think it's 5 clean sheets in a row in all comps. So I'm going to say potential for clean sheets. I still don't feel like their attack's quite clicked. I don't feel like Sheffield United are the sort of side that's going to sort of lose 3 or 4 or 5-0. I think this one's going to be a 2-0 or a 1-0. But again, Werner did look sharp last night, so you never know. It could be a another 3-0 for Chelsea or even higher. But it's going to have to be Spurs away to West Brom, West Ham home to Fulham, and Chelsea at home to Sheffield United as my 3 teams. Some
great teams there. Obviously, you've mentioned a few of those players in your watch list section. Obviously, your Jared Bowens, your Aaron Cresswells, Ziyech as well, and Tammy Abraham from West Ham and Chelsea. And also, you've got your Spurs men as well, your Kane's and your Son. So, a lot of interesting options there. They feature in some of your captain picks, but as well, there's a bit of a bombshell, a bit of an interesting one that I wouldn't have expected. Can you please elaborate on that?
Yeah, look, we'll begin with the tried and tested captains. I've gone with Kane, Son. The obvious choices. I think that's going to be 95% plus of FPL managers this weekend. Son is the most owned player in the game. There's some talk that that's not going to be the case for much longer with the difficult fixture on for Spurs. But if you're going to captain Son, this is the time to do it away at West Brom. He loves to play on the counter attack as well. Albeit we probably will have a bit of the ball, more of the ball in saying that. But he loves his games away. Does Son? He's better away than he's at home. More than likely going to be my captain, I'd say. So Son and then Kane. You've got the added advantage of penalties with Kane. Another one I've gone Zaha, home game to Leeds. He's going to be in my team in my wild card. He's not someone I always like having in fantasy league. I've never been a big fan of Palace because they don't score many, but he has hit the numbers this season so far, and it's hard to resist. So I'm going to put Zaha out there. I've kept with Salah. He Liverpool penalties. He goes down easy. They do get penalty kicks. City, in their last big game at home against Leicester, they let 5 goals in. So I think if you're really, really stuck for options and you want to do something completely different, you can go Salah. But yeah, look, I'm going to do a curveball captain on a weekly basis now, and I think what I might try to do is just pick a captain that's just a complete curveball, someone that you wouldn't normally do. And this week it is a bit out there, but I've put Tarek Lamptey down, and I know this is a bit far-fetched, but I do remember a tactic last season where Trent Alexander-Arnold and Robertson were captains quite frequently for Liverpool as defenders. And just watching the Spurs-Brighton game the other day, and Lamptey just continued to impress. He got the goal. He did have a slight knock, so the worry is if you are a Lamptey owner that he might not actually play this week. But if we get the 100% go-ahead and you just want to captain someone completely different, there's Burnley who aren't scoring goals, so there's a high chance of a clean sheet. Plus, he's getting forward so much. He's pretty much a right winger, getting assists. He's now got his goals. So if you just are at a point where you just want to do something completely out there, I've put Lamptey down as my curveball option, a nice home game. But if you've got Kane or Son and Lamptey, you've got to go on a Kane or Son. But yeah, just my curveball for the week.
Nice new addition there. Something that's always been the same on this podcast is the Scout 11. Who have you gone with?
Yeah, look, this is within the 100 million budget, so I've actually called this one a Scout squad this weekend because a lot of the big players, so your Salahs, Sterlings, and those premium guys were left out. So I've been able to kind of build a bit more of a squad. So yeah, look, I went with Lloris. I was going to double up on Chelsea and have the Mendy, the new goalkeeper, and Chilwell, but I thought just in case I sort of spread the players out a bit, so I've gone with Lloris, Chilwell at home to Sheffield United, Cresswell and Vestergaard, who is a big aerial threat. Home to Newcastle. I actually think Newcastle might score, but there's always that set piece threat and form. I've got to kind of put him in there. Bellerin, spoke about, he's getting forward a lot. Midfield, I think those four speak for themselves currently. Son, Ziyech from Chelsea. Fornals, I think it was between him and Bowen. I think either one could be pretty safe with. They're both looking quite sharp for West Ham. Zaha, who I think's in most of our teams, and then up front, armband on Kane for the Scout 11, and then gone with Werner. I think that was your transfer, Ollie, and that scene you talked about him in the group message earlier, and I think that swayed me to put him in the Scout 11 this week. Closely followed by Che Adams on the bench. Now there's no Danny Ings. He might step up and start taking over with a few more goals. I've got my curveball captain Lamptey on the bench there, Harvey Barnes and Fabianski. So if any of the starting 11 doesn't play, we've actually got a strong bench this week, which is never normally the case. So
great squad in there, Matt. Great, good squad, mate.
Yeah, look, it looks good. There's a few of the usuals: Salah, Sterling, De Bruyne, Trent, those types of guys who don't feature this week. But I'm putting a bit of faith in some of the lower teams like your Palaces, and although West Ham are actually doing quite well, reality is they're normally a sort of bottom half mid-table club at best. So
no Man United players. Speaking of lower teams,
yeah. Actually, speaking of lower teams, no Man United players. Yeah, sorry, I just. You've not been getting the penalties lately, have you? So, can't be
it has gone quiet, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I feel like last couple of weeks it has gone quiet with penalties. It wasn't. I definitely switched up my team around to be built around penalties, and then all of a sudden, penalties didn't come in anymore.
Yeah.
Now moving on to the guest section, it's the reason also why I've swapped out the Rovers kit for a bit of RZ just here. We've got a bit of a Dutch flavour on our podcast this week. We've got Sebastian Sterrel, who manages Penalties Only Please, who are just inside the top 20 of our FPL Addicts and Esports Live League. Welcome to podcast, Seb. How are you?
Not too bad, guys. How are you doing?
Yeah, not bad at all. How have you found the season so far, and are you confident that you can stay inside the top 20?
It's been a strange FPL season. I'm pretty sure everyone's thought that. I mean, with the huge amount of pens at the start of the season, and now a lot of goals happening. I mean, it's hard to find the value picks really. I got lucky that I think Mitchell from Palace did not play, and Bellerin was on my bench, and he took a spot. So got lucky there. So hopefully I can keep this run going for the foreseeable future.
And with your team is Penalties Only Please. We assume that you're a Man United fan. Is that true?
Yes, I am. Have been for a long time. But I have never. Sorry. This season I haven't owned a Man U player yet.
Wow, not even Bruno.
No, I actually thought about bringing Bruno like after their bye in the first week. But I first wanted to see how they were going, and then I decided to bring in other players, and then I used my wild card at some point, and I just haven't brought anyone in. I am thinking about Rashford or someone like that soon.
Seb, mate, you're a referee, and I know we're not too educated on how Dutch football works, but what level do you ref at, and what is your opinion on VAR?
Good question. So I've only refereed in Australia. So before, so probably heading back to start of 2019, kind of got introduced to State League 2. which was nice, and doing under-20s boys MPL in Victoria, that is, and doing women's Premier League as well.
Just back to VAR, Seb. Are you a fan? Yes or no? In the Premier League specifically.
In general, I am a fan, but it's being used a lot better now than it has been. So yes, I am a fan, but I still think that there's a lot of improvements that have to be made on it.
Definitely agree with you there. Places like when it was used at the 2018 World Cup, it's definitely that was better use than the Premier League is now.
That was actually very good over there, I thought.
Hi Seb, it's the guru here from FPL Addicts.
Right.
What's your form been in previous years of FPL? And if you've played in previous years, where have you done your research and where are you currently doing your research?
Honestly, don't really remember how I've done in the previous years. I do think last year got to like the third round of the cup, which I was kind of happy with. Kind of the best I did in the cup. I don't think I had a great year last year, but the previous year it was a little bit better. It seemed to be taking a bit more serious this year somehow. Where I get my info from, Fantasy Football Scout has some really good stuff, I think.
Yeah, they're good.
I listened to the so the FPL podcast and the Fantasy Premier League show.
Nice work, mate. And obviously, you listen to our podcast. I know you're one of our number one listeners in there.
Yes,
but going
indeed.
on to good man, and going on to obviously your team now. I know you just said you're taking it a bit more seriously this year. Does that mean you're not much of a risk taker? Has any of your picks been any of those risky picks in there? Have you gambled on any of them?
Well, in terms of the gamble, I kind of gambled not taking any Man United players, and that hurt me. I think the thing that hurt me in the first 5 weeks, maybe, but since then I've been happy. I took away KDB instead of for Sterling when he got injured, which is a risk, but it seemed like Man City at the time weren't going well, and Sterling was probably going to get more points. I stuck with Son, but of course I took the risk in the week that he was reported injured, and then freaking Mourinho, of course, starting again.
I think a lot of people have that same reaction, mate. And
typical Mourinho.
Typical Mourinho, of course.
Yeah.
Obviously, on the subject of obviously the Dutch, obviously being an Ajax fan yourself in your native home country. Obviously, it's Edwin van der Sar's birthday today. Do you want to send him a video shout out, a birthday message?
You know what? I hadn't even realized. So, happy birthday to the best Dutch goalkeeper of all time.
He was a legend for Manchester United as well.
Oh yeah.
Definitely a top-notch keeper, and I don't know if Man United have had too many better than him other than De Gea, but he's been a bit Poppadom hands recently. In terms of modern, though, in terms of current form, what are your hopes for the rest of the season for both Manchester United and in Fantasy Premier League?
Seems like United are more of a cup team than anything else at the moment, which does not bode well whatsoever.
No.
They need to get some kind of a leader, and they don't have a leader. So without them signing a leader or someone somehow becoming one, they're not going to qualify for the Champions League again next season, which will be a huge shame. For my personal goals in fantasy, I think I cracked the nearly the top 500 this week around. So maybe top 200 or something.
Sounds good. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, Sebastian. Go well for the rest of the season, and hopefully we can have you on the podcast soon again this year. Take care.
Thank you very much, guys. Cheers.
So that was Sebastian Sterrell, who is our guest for this week in Classic. But moving on from that now, we're on to the draft section of the podcast. We're just going to quickly run over the results from game week 7. Rolando got absolutely another pasting from the top player in the league, which is Jack. He's still top, 3 points clear of Matt now, 27-point win for him there, so he's pretty happy with that. Elliot got smashed again, had a shocking week in Classic, continued that over to draft. Dave finally got himself off the board. So when you're out of form, you want to be playing Elliot or Orlando, we found. So a big win for Dave there. Statman Dave, he's off the board. He's up and running. Big win there for him. 23 points to the tune of that was as well. Speaking of big wins, I had an absolutely smashing against James in the Battle of the Championship followers. 72-37. Absolutely battered him. Not much to say there. And the best game of the week, I'd say, was the match we talked about. The match we previewed earlier on was Matt against the Mac lads. And I said to Dad going in, he's like, there's no way you've lost this looking at your team there. But he actually has managed to do so. Good score on 49, but not good enough. 55 points for Matt as he took the 3 points. Moving over to the standings, Jack is still setting the pace up the top. 5 wins from 5, the only person to do so. He's clear of Matt and myself, who are both on 12. We've got the Mac lads in 4th on 9 points. And then from there, it's pretty poor reading, let's say. James on 4 points. David finally off the board. With a win there, and also Elliot, he's having a shocker, and Rolando still hasn't won, so nothing new there.
Still don't think he's lost his team.
No, it got auto picked, and I don't think it's been pretty derelict there, so nothing's happened in that regard. Moving into game week 8, the match of the round is the top one you can see for sure. Jack and Matt, the top 2 in the league, will be squaring off. Look at that table just quickly before we do that. Matt could jump clear on top of the table with a win, who would unseat Jack for the first time this season and knock him off the top. But that's the fixture of the week so far. We'll preview that in just a second. I'm playing the Mac lads, so I'm playing my dad, so a bit of banter will be going on in this household. James and David, so David could go back to back really here if we're talking about that. The best of the rest, though, is James. He's in 4th, and he'll be looking to move close to that top 3. And the basement battlers, Elliot and Rolando. Please, this is going to be low scoring, isn't it? This is going to be, your boring 0-0 scoreless draw. And I don't think we'll be talking much about that come the podcast. One thing we will be talking about, though, is probably the top game between Jack and Matt. They've been billed a blockbuster, the heavyweight sides. Jack even said he called his mum about it. So that's how big it's reaching. If we just preview the game just quickly. Last week, Jack had himself 55 points. Not a bad score, though. Martinez was poor in net. Blank completely, no points there. But if we move further forward, James Ward-Prowse, what a pick that is. And Jack Grealish on opposite wings there. 32 points between them. That's an unbelievable effort. And also we had Harry Kane chipping in. And also Ben Chilwell with 6 points. Reguilon also had 4. There's a bit of an injury cloud there. So a decent week, all things considered. Moving over to Matt's camp. I think he also had 55 points as well, correct?
I believe so. Yeah,
we're going neck and neck to start.
Yeah, I was following it very closely when I was obviously playing against your old man, and I said he was a dark horse, and I thought he had me. And then when I think I got to the games on Sunday night, and I had a few extra players, and I just got this feeling that I was gonna edge him, and managed to put Thiago Silva in there at the last sort of minute with the transactions before the deadline. As a free agent, he was, so he come out and got me a clean sheet. I was happy with that. Watkins got me a penalty. They decided to put him on penalties, so I was pretty happy with that one. Everyone else, I pretty much. Nundumbele was a late one. I managed to bring him in. He didn't do anything, but a couple of points just to boost me up there. So look, I think the bringing in Thiago Silva was really helped, and I'm gonna have to make some moves though, because this lineup I've got now is not beating the the draft guru that we call Jack. It's looking at his team. It's just he's built for this week. I think if I was playing him after the international break, I'd beat him, because there's that Spurs Man City game, and I think Southampton end up with Wolves, but I think and then Leicester end up with Liverpool too. And I just think with these fixtures that he's got there with Cresswell, Harry Kane, Zaha. I don't know how I'm going to beat that. If it was another week and Salah had a lower side, I think I'd be able to run him, really close. But yeah, I'm going to have to see what's available and see what I can do, because he's the man to beat, and my lineup I just can't see me beating him this week. But
there's about as much confidence in that dressing room as there is at Manchester United right now.
It's just the Zaha and Kane and Cresswell. But look, if I can pull a few transfers out the hat, then it might be okay. But my current lineup's just not built for this game week, unfortunately. But yeah, never say never.
I think there's a lot of tough pickings in there. Obviously, the transactions wise, there's not much out there to go and get. So
absolutely nothing of
very
worth.
slim pickings.
So hopefully it stays as it is, and I can take a clear victory and go 6-6, boys.
Yeah, we'll just throw it quickly back to you, Jack. How do you reckon you're going to do that? Obviously, Matt, we've had a detailed analysis of his team. Obviously, you had a decent week yourself. This is your section. So how do you reckon you're going to overtop the Classic Guru?
Yeah, I think we're going to overtopple him and overtop him as well.
I just couldn't speak there. Words just didn't happen.
No, I think obviously from Matt's analysis, the boys that are on the pitch at the moment are all looking good before the international break. I think obviously I'm going to bring Schmeichel in for Martinez because he's just fallen out of favour, so I think it's going to strengthen me a bit further.
Villa's fixtures are brilliant, can I just say, after this game week. I think they got Arsenal and then it's just green and a little bit of grey. So
this one, yeah. So
is that Chilwell as well that you've got in there?
And Chilwell's in there as well. So
I don't call him the draft guru for nothing.
I know, picked wisely in that one. I'm still wondering how I got Harry Kane, considering I was the 7th pick in our draft pick. I cannot believe no one picked him. So I think that one, when I built the team around him, was brilliant.
Yeah.
Obviously Zaha as well. He had a quiet week. Rolando got lucky, I think, during the week with Zaha having a quiet game. Otherwise, it could have been absolutely devastating. And I'm still waiting for Adama Traore to kick. He's not really done anything this season, has he? But I think he's obviously hopefully one to watch. He's obviously spending a lot more time in the gym. So I think he's just adjusting to his bigger body shape. And Ward-Prowse, obviously, after his birthday week performing, he stepped up big time and set piece specialist. Enjoying watching him. And Martial will be coming back from suspension as well. So I'm sure he'll be wanting to come back firing as well. So there's a lot of strength in depth there as well. So I'll be very worried for Matt, and I'll be very worried for anyone else as we go through. So yeah, I think from that respect, I'm looking positive and still looking to go 6-6 undefeated.
It'll be an absolute heavyweight bout, and we'll have to see how they go next week. Obviously, we do have an international break, so that was going to keep us going throughout the week to see if Jack can go 6 from 6 or if Matt can upset the apple cart. We do have an international break, which is kind of disappointing. But before that, though, we keep forgetting to mention the early deadline. It keeps hitting and keeps hitting. So we'll mention it now. 3 o'clock Australian time is the deadline on Saturday morning. Brighton-Burnley will follow 90 minutes later. And a bit of a bumper Saturday morning football because Southampton will be taking on Elliot's Newcastle. But do not miss that deadline. So that concludes another FPL Addicts and Esports Live podcast. Best of luck to you all this week. I think that most of that extends out to Elliot as well because he needs to rebound for sure. I think more than Jack. He had obviously we've mentioned that how Jack had a better week than Elliot, but he didn't even want to come on the pod this week, did Elliot? But yeah, best of luck to you this week, mate. You want to be getting back to your former glory, and that is being top of the league. To the rest of you out there, do not miss that early deadline. I know I said it before, but there is another reminder. 3 a.m. obviously Melbourne time for that game between Brighton and Burnley at 4:30 a.m. So it's not really the greatest game to kick off the game week, but make sure your teams are in and don't be stung by that early deadline. It's really early this week, so make sure your teams are all good. Otherwise, that's us done for another week. Thanks for tuning in. Take care. See you next week.